The deepest scars are the ones no one can see. The ones left by words that felt like love, silence that felt like punishment, and kindness that came with a hook. Tell me, how do you heal from a wound you were told never existed? I remember sitting at dinner with a friend I hadn't seen in years. We'd grown up together. She'd known me at my loudest, my wildest, my most unapologetically me. And that night, she looked across the table, eyes soft but searching, and said, "Where did you go?" And I felt my breath catch, because in that instant, I realized I didn't know the answer. That's how emotional abuse often begins. Not with a slap, not with a scream, not with something that's easy to name or point to. It begins with a slow, almost imperceptible dimming of your light. Like a room where someone keeps turning down the brightness, click by click, so gently that you don't even notice you're sitting in the dark. It starts small, a joke at your expense in front of others. And when you flinch, they say, "Oh, come on, you're too sensitive." You tell them something that excites you, a dream, a plan, a joy, and they roll their eyes or change the subject. That's not realistic. Why would you waste your time on that? And at first, you argue back. You defend your dream. You explain yourself. But over time, you stop, not because they're right, but because it's exhausting. Because every time you try to shine, they cast a shadow. And soon, you start pre-editing yourself, dimming your own light so you won't have to feel that sting again. What's cruel is that emotional abuse doesn't always look like malice. Sometimes it looks like concern, like help. They'll say, "I'm just trying to protect you. I'm the only one who tells you the truth." And that confuses the hell out of you, because you start wondering if maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like. Uncomfortable, small, silenced. And that confusion, that's the trap. Psychologists have a term for this, gaslighting. It's when someone distorts your sense of reality so subtly, so consistently, that you begin to mistrust your own memory, your own instincts, your own truth. It's like someone handing you a cracked mirror and insisting, "See, this is how you really look." And the longer you stare, the more the cracks start to feel normal. But here's the raw, soul-deep truth that no one ever told me, and maybe no one ever told you. If someone needs to make you smaller in order to feel bigger, if someone calls it love, but it feels like losing yourself, that isn't love. That's control, dressed up in concern, wrapped in affection that comes with strings. And the longer you stay in that darkness, the harder it feels to find your way back to the light. But I promise you this, your light is not gone. It's still in you. It's waiting. I had a client once, let's call her Sarah, who sat across from me, eyes darting to the floor, fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. And in the smallest voice, like she was confessing a sin, she said, "I'm scared of what mood he'll be in when I get home." She wasn't scared of bruises or broken bones. She was scared of the storm that could erupt from a single misplaced word, a forgotten chore, a laugh at the wrong moment. And as she spoke, I felt my chest tighten because I knew that fear. Maybe you do too. That invisible tightrope we walk, believing if we can just balance perfectly, we'll keep the peace. It starts slowly. One day you realize you're rehearsing your words before you speak. You start checking their face for signs. Are they irritated? Annoyed? Ready to snap? You think twice before sharing good news because you're not sure if they'll celebrate with you or find a way to dim your joy. You tell yourself, if I can just anticipate their needs, if I can just not mess up, things will be okay. But here's the part that hurts to say out loud. No matter how careful you are, the rules keep changing. And that's not because you're failing, it's because the game is rigged. Emotional abuse doesn't always look like shouting or slamming doors or cruel names. Sometimes it's subtler. It's the withholding of love until you've earned it. The affection that comes and goes like a prize for good behavior. It's stonewalling. Those long, punishing silences where your very existence feels like an offense. It's sarcasm, masked as humor. It's the threat that's never spoken but always felt. The unspoken, don't push me. And it's so confusing because mixed in with all of that are moments that feel warm, tender, real. And we cling to those moments like lifelines, telling ourselves, see, this is who they really are. This is worth fighting for. But living like this changes us. From a psychological perspective, this is what chronic fear does. It rewires our nervous system. We stop living in the present and start living in hypervigilance. Our bodies stay on high alert, scanning for danger, waiting for the next explosion. We don't rest, we don't breathe deeply, we exist in survival mode, and that's no way to live. And here's what I want you to hear in the quiet of your heart. You were not put on this earth to tiptoe around someone else's temper. You deserve a love where you can exhale, where you can speak freely, where your joy isn't rationed out like a privilege, but celebrated as a gift. There was a moment in my own life I don't talk about often, a moment that still stings when I remember it. Not because of what someone else said or did, but because of what I said to myself. I was standing at the sink, washing dishes, tears pooling in my eyes, my chest tight from yet another argument that left me feeling small and invisible. And in that moment, I heard myself whisper, just let it go. And the second those words left my mouth, I felt the weight of them. Because deep down, I knew I wasn't saying that because it wasn't bad. I was saying it because I was terrified of what admitting the truth would mean. That's one of the deepest betrayals we live through, the betrayal of our own heart. The moment when we choose to silence that small, brave voice inside of us that keeps trying to tell the truth. The voice that says, this hurts. This isn't love. I deserve better. But we muffle it. We talk over it because the truth is too scary. Because if we admit it, we might have to act on it. And so we stay. We minimize. We make excuses. We cling to the hope that maybe if we're just more patient, more loving, more forgiving, things will change. The tragedy is that emotional abuse feeds off this hope. It counts on your good heart. It counts on your willingness to see the best in someone, to believe in potential, to fight for what you once had. And in doing so, it pulls you into a cycle where you start doubting your reality. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, that painful tension between what we wish were true and what is actually happening. And in that tension, we can lose ourselves. We can start telling stories to make the pieces fit. They didn't mean it. They had a hard day. I shouldn't have pushed. And here's the hardest part to face. When we betray our own heart long enough, we start to believe the story we've been fed, that we're the problem, that if we were different, the relationship would be different, that we're too sensitive, too needy, too much. But I want you to hear this. Like, I wish someone had said it to me that night at the sink. Your heart is not the problem. Your longing for respect, kindness, safety, that's not weakness. That's the bare minimum of love. It's okay to grieve the person you thought they were. It's okay to mourn the dream you're slowly realizing will never be. But don't betray your own heart to keep a story alive. Because the cost of that betrayal, it's you, and you are too precious to lose. I'll never forget sitting across from a woman, let's call her Maya, who looked at me with eyes that had forgotten how to cry. She said, I can't tell anyone, they wouldn't believe me. And The weight of those words hung in the air like fog. Because Maya wasn't being physically hurt, she had no visible scars, no proof she could point to. To the world, her relationship looked fine, maybe even enviable. But inside her home, inside her heart, she was crumbling. And she felt like no one would see it. No one would get it. That's the brutal, hidden cruelty of emotional abuse, the silence it traps you in, the way it convinces you to keep the truth locked up, buried deep, because speaking it feels too risky. What if people don't believe you? What if they say, but he's so nice, or she seems so caring? What if they think you're the difficult one, the problem one? And so you stay silent, not because you want to, but because the shame wraps around your throat like a noose. Abusers are often masters of wearing masks. They can be charming, generous, kind, especially in public. They build their reputation carefully, like armor, so that if you ever dared speak out, people would question you, not them. And they isolate you in subtle ways, making you feel guilty for spending time with friends, sowing distrust between you and your family, making you feel like they're the only one who really cares. And little by little, your world shrinks, until one day you look up and realize you're alone in this. Or at least, that's how it feels. Psychologists call this isolation and triangulation. It's a tactic designed to cut you off from your lifelines, to make you dependent, to make the abuser the center of your world, and it works, because humans are wired for connection. When that connection gets poisoned, we don't stop wanting it, we just start tolerating whatever form it comes in. But here's the truth I want to offer you gently, like a hand reaching into that fog. Your silence doesn't mean your pain isn't real. Your silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been surviving the only way you knew how. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to let someone safe hear your story. Because you are not alone. And you don't have to stay trapped in that silence. Your voice is still there, beneath the fear, beneath the shame, and it's waiting patiently, bravely, for you to set it free. There's this quiet, almost sacred moment that comes in the aftermath of emotional abuse. A moment so small, so easy to miss, but so life-altering if we honor it. It's not the dramatic leaving scene we see in movies. There's no packed suitcase at the door, no big speech. It's quieter than that. It's the moment when, maybe for the first time in a long time, you hear a voice inside you whisper, "No more." A voice that trembles, that doubts itself even as it speaks, but it's your voice. And in that instant, something shifts. That's the courage to choose yourself. I remember when it happened to me. There wasn't some huge fight. There wasn't a final straw that snapped. It was just one ordinary morning. I looked in the mirror, and for a flicker of a second, I saw myself. Not the version I'd been shrinking into, not the version shaped by fear, by someone else's opinions, but the me I had almost forgotten. And I thought, I want her back. That's how it starts. That's where the courage lives, not in the loud, fiery moments, but in the quiet decision to stop abandoning yourself. Choosing yourself after emotional abuse feels terrifying because for so long you've been told, directly or through subtle jabs, that you don't matter, that your needs are selfish, that your boundaries are rejection, that your feelings are wrong. So when you finally start to say, I deserve better, even if you're only saying it to yourself, it feels like rebellion, like betrayal. But it's not betrayal of them. It's the end of betraying you. From a psychological lens, this is what we call reclaiming agency. When you've been in an emotionally abusive relationship, your sense of control over your life slowly slips away. You stop making choices from your own truth and start making them out of fear. Fear of their anger, their disappointment, their withdrawal. Healing begins when you start taking that control back, piece by piece. Maybe it's the decision to tell someone your story. Maybe it's setting a boundary that terrifies you. Maybe it's just letting yourself feel the anger or grief you've been stuffing down for years. Every small act of choosing yourself is an act of profound courage. And here's the truth I want you to carry in your bones. You don't have to wait for permission to choose yourself. You don't need their validation. You don't need the perfect plan. You just need that one brave, trembling step toward your own light. Because you are worthy, not of earning love through suffering, not of proving your value through endurance, but of love that doesn't hurt. Love that doesn't ask you to disappear. And that starts with you offering that love to yourself. You choosing you, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because that's where freedom begins. If you heard your story in any of this, if your heart is pounding right now, or your throat is tight, please know there is nothing wrong with you. The abuse was real, and your healing is possible, one truth at a time, one brave choice at a time.